And we're live. My name's Rebecca Martin. I am the festival director for the Cinema Femme Short Film Festival. I founded Cinema Femme 2 years ago. We started a magazine, and I do a lot of interviews with women in film. Probably in the past year, I've interviewed over 100 women in film, which is crazy. And while I was doing that, I was like, why don't we start a short film festival? Because there's so much knowledge, first of all, with these female filmmakers. And I just felt a desire to connect emerging female filmmakers to women who've been in the industry for a while. And I just was like, okay, I'll do a festival, showcase, elevate these amazing female filmmakers, and I will connect them, through a mentorship program. So that's the essence of the Cinema Femme Short Film Festival, where we're supporting one another. And this is our very first event, first day of the festival. This is Short Block 1 Q&A, and I'm really excited for you to get to know the filmmakers behind the films in this short block. Moderating tonight, we have Colette Ghunim. She is a documentary filmmaker and founder of Mezcla Media Collective, which is an amazing group in Chicago that supports women of color, female filmmakers, and they are just doing awesome things. So I'm just so happy Colette can be here and that she can moderate this Q&A. I'll come in at the end just to give some more information about buying tickets, future events. But for now, I'll let Colette kick us off, and I'll see you at the end of the Q&A. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. I'm so excited to speak with all of you today. We got to watch all of your fantastic films, and I personally have so many questions, and I'm sure we'll get some along the way as well. But before we go deeper into each film, I'd love to start out with just asking about your general inspiration and what led you to make these films. Maybe we can I'll just go in the order that I have on my screen. So we can start with Andi.
Hi. So for me, the inspiration for this movie came from growing up in Appalachia and just seeing over time how addiction and the opioid epidemic has started really destroying our communities, and feeling hopeless and helpless to help the situation. And for me, it's art. That's all I know how to do. That's how I know how to use my voice. So the story is inspired by a few different people that I know, family members and friends that I've had through school who have faced addiction. And it just came from that, just wanting to take a story and do something powerful and meaningful that causes people to have a conversation and, a gut reaction around something that's very serious.
Yeah, and when I noticed that, the ability of art to actually heal yourself, for people to actually see this, is incredible, to start that healing process inside of themselves.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Reflection. So yes, it's a very crucial piece to have, I think, for nationally and globally too, around addiction. So thank you for making it.
Thank you.
Great. All right, now we can go to Dani. Cool for 5 seconds.
Hi. So I actually directed Cool for 5 Seconds as a play in 2017 as part of a theater festival in Chicago. And as I was working on it, I was really struck by, the writing and the characters. I'm very drawn to characters who are full of a lot of contradictions and who can't necessarily describe easily. I thought the writer did such a good job of creating these very complex, very realistic women. And that was something I realized as I was working on it, I wasn't seeing a lot of. So, I decided to work with the writer to adapt the piece for film, because I really wanted to dig into these characters a little further and bring their relationship to life on a wider platform. So that's how it began.
Incredible, incredible. I'm excited to hear how that went. That like screenwriting versus play versus film process. And we'll go into it later. Great. And now we have Regina in the blood.
Hi. I've always loved spaghetti westerns, but my husband and I were in Milan, and I was watching an Italian film with no English subtitles, obviously. And I was like, I have no idea what they're saying, but this is awesome. And I don't really care what they're saying. And then I actually got a copy of it. When I saw what they were saying, I was like, okay, I liked it better before I knew what they were saying. But I said, I really want to make something like I want to make a proof of concept with you. And my husband and I threw this together and made it last summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just as kind of like, I would love to develop it into a feature, as I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing. But that was basically why I did it.
That's so fun. That's so fun. I love the inspiration. Awesome. Thanks, Regina. Now we can go to, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it Nathalie?
Hi, it's Nathalie.
Nathalie. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah. Yeah, so for me, Alma, I was inspired to make this film because I'm a first generation Latinx, and for me, I don't really see a lot of that in the media, in the mainstream media, and it was really important for me to really have two female Latinx women be at the forefront of this film to tell a story about an everyday life of a first generation girl, and it was inspired 2 years ago, actually, when I went to Peru and Bolivia, my parents' native countries.
Wow.
For the first time, like in, I don't know, 15 years that I had actually been there, and I was there to really connect with my roots.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so glad that I was able to do that, because I was so inspired to show that there are so many out there, first generation, who are so similar in so many ways. So that was really my main inspiration for writing it.
I love that so much. Yeah, especially I am like half Latina, so it was definitely. I'm like watching my mom right now. The exact same relationship. So I really appreciated you creating this as well to like have this representation. Totally. Great. And then we have Brittany, the cheap seats.
Hi. Yeah, I made the cheap seats about a town that's real in real life called Castega, and I had driven through Castega a bunch of times. I'm from South Florida, and it's a cool pit stop on your way out of Florida. You're driving back to Texas, where I live now, and so I've been there a bunch of times. It's such a strange place for so many reasons, which we can get into, and so I wanted to write a fictional film, but film it in a real place that's like larger than fiction in a way. And then I think that the town itself speaks to a lot of like sort of things that I identify with culturally, not necessarily that I believe necessarily in psychics or anything, but there's that like longing to want to have some sort of magic in your life that is there. And so I wanted to create a character that was skeptical and sort of make the audience feel like they spent a day there too.
Oh, I love that so much. And like this mixing of documentary and fiction, I feel like it isn't happening enough. So that's really cool that you went there and like explored mixing those two. Great. Okay, so now we can go more into the specific questions around the films. Let's see, maybe we can start with Dani. So I did want to ask about like your difference from going from this play to going into a film, and how that adaptation happened, and what was that process like? Because I feel like maybe there's other filmmakers here that are like, oh yeah, I would like this play to become an actual film, but don't know how.
Well, part of my initial desire to make it a film was, when as a theater director, like your tools are kind of like space and movement. And this film is like two people sitting at a table and they never move. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of tools to actually like tell this story in the way that I wanted it to. And the addition of the camera actually like opened up a lot of storytelling opportunity for me. So that was very exciting and like a really great development in the process. As far as the writing goes, I mean, I was so lucky that the writer Calamity West was excited to adapt this. So she did several rewrites of the original script. And ultimately the main difference was that she took out a lot of information. I mean,
Okay.
still a super dialogue heavy film. And it was much more dialogue heavy as a script or as a play, because you just need so much more exposition when you're on stage to like articulate what's happening. So it was basically a cutting process. And I'm really glad that she's such a good writer that she was very open to that. And then we kept cutting all the way through the editing process as well. And then my actors, Mary Tilden and Catherine Bourne-Taylor, are the same actors from the play, and they both have a lot of like theater and on-camera experience. So it was a pretty easy transition for them. But we did have to do a lot of work to reshape the kind of like arc and tone of the scene for the camera.
Yes, I was going to ask too, because like for me, it definitely resonated with like these family relationships and like how to bring down barriers between each other, which is very hard, and how you came up with this like lead up to the resolution, having it come step by step, that you see like slowly they're starting to open up more and more. How did that shift from the original script, and like what did you feel like you needed to keep versus was unnecessary?
Well, the original gave a lot more information about what had actually transpired between them. So that was like the main thing. And then I will say the other thing was that when I was directing it as a play, I was relying completely on their performances to communicate this transition. And I actually felt like I got to support them a lot better as a director with the camera, because I could help the audience like know where what's going on. So
yes.
I think that's the main differences.
Okay. Yeah, definitely like the benefit of film. You can really move how people feel with the camera,
I felt like
everything.
we were together a little more as a team, as opposed to me just like letting them kind of loose on stage, which is what the initial version felt more like, which also has like virtues and really interesting.
Right.
But I felt like this was much more collaborative.
I feel like that's the best. I personally love that you can actually like work with actors to make the film incredible. Awesome. All right, next we can go to Nathalie. I would love to ask more about the art and the theme of art in her healing process, the main character's healing process, and how I guess sort of like what was the meaning behind her art that like kept coming up repeatedly too, and the intention behind that.
Yes. I'm not a painter. Let me just put that out there. I really wanted to explore that because when I was in Bolivia, it's a third world country and they have a lot of government problems going on. I was there for a month. And their biggest form of protest, because the government was really taking control of everything, the TV that they're watching, the movies they were watching, the radio that they were listening to, their form of art was protesting through art. And you see collages, you see murals everywhere, really displaying their act of protest. So for me, I came back and I was like, I want to explore so much of what painting and sketching and poetry means to a lot of people. It's a form of release. It's a form of getting in touch with your heart, your soul, and also digging into the things that you're not comfortable talking with other people about, and things can get heavy. So I think creating, allowing her to have her self-portrait really taps into the different multidimensional human that she is. So that's really what I wanted to portray with her sketches and her self-portraits and then her poetry as well.
Yeah, I love that like inner layer that we get to see in her through the art that she's creating. It's great. Thanks. All right. Now, the next question I have is for Andi around the idea around like addiction and trying to break these stereotypes of an addict, and how I guess I didn't feel like that at all in this film. Like I definitely felt like the characters were multidimensional. You could see that their environment is very difficult and like what causes them to go down these routes. And how was it actually creating the script, or like the entire process of trying to go beyond that stereotype of like an addict?
Yeah, it was really important to me to not stereotype addiction and addicts, because I've experienced it firsthand. It's very complex, you know. Everybody, from people from all walks of life and all backgrounds, can become addicted, and some people, they survive, they like live their daily lives as addicts. You know, it's not this, you know, flashing light, this sign above everybody's head that's like, this person's an addict and their life is destroyed. You know, it looks different for everybody. So it was really important for me for this, when I was writing the script, to be realistic about it and to not focus so much on the addiction, on the drugs, because these are real people and they have stories, and there's reasons that they're addicts, and there's reasons that she's selling pills, and there's, you know, it's just so complex that I didn't want it to be a story about drugs, about addiction, because that, I think that in solving addiction and in helping people heal from it, and and communities heal, we have to get to the root problem, and the root problem is not addiction necessarily. There's other things going on. So I wanted to focus more on their stories than on the addiction themselves. And I talked to a lot of people who have experienced addiction themselves, and I talked to drug dealers, and, you know, around my hometown, and asked them a lot of questions. So I wanted to be as accurate as I could.
That's amazing. Yeah, having that like real intimate knowledge to have it portrayed on screen, I felt like that was very obvious while watching too, that like you knew this community well, and that that often doesn't seem like it happens enough. So that's incredible. And the other thing was around how did you choose what stage of healing that she was in? Like I felt like it was more of like a mid-process healing, that the ending wasn't necessarily this happy, okay, I'm cured kind of thing, but just understanding what made you decide at what stage she was in her life to cover it.
Actually, the last scene of the movie is the first thing I wrote. It's the first scene that's where the whole story came from. And so I guess that's kind of rare that it happens that way, of like I knew exactly where it was ending. So it kind of gave me an idea of where she was in her life. And I liked too that it's still really open-ended. Like, even though she is coming to terms with all of this, with her life and the choices she's made and what her community is happening in her community, there's still so much left unsaid, and there's so much more to come. And I really wanted it to be open-ended like that, because addiction is not black or white. Like solving this and making and healing our communities is not like a black or white issue, and it's really complex within itself. So I wanted to leave it open, like she could be anywhere in her process, just like anybody else could be, and every day is a different battle, you know. Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that insight of like knowing that you made the ending first, that's really fascinating. Great. All right. Thank you, Andi. Next, we can go to Brittany about this mixing of documentary and fiction. And it was something that I'm just like super interested in. I'm a documentary filmmaker. So like seeing what was the process of you adding fiction? Were those real employees at these different places at the hotel and things like that? I'd love the background on it.
Yeah. Well, I went there from like a documentary perspective multiple times, and I shot a lot of interviews with people who live there, and kind of just got my head wrapped around the community as much as I can. And there's so much more there than I was able to put in like a 13-minute film, and it was really hard. And I do want to work on some documentary material as well. Yeah, there's a lot there. But so the main actress, after Laura is the main actress. She's an incredible professional. And then her co-star is Nellie, who's in a medium who lives in the town. And I actually casted her like days before, like only like 3 days before the shoot, because we were still looking for that woman for a long time. And she happened to be someone that I had visited with just from a documentary perspective. And then I offered her the role, and she was like, I really didn't think she was going to take it. I mean, there's like a lot of complicated things to talk about there in terms of mixing documentary and narrative, because it's complicated because people there had a lot of different really strong beliefs about what they were doing, and I wanted to come in and make a film that kind of was playful with those beliefs and walk like a really thin line.
You don't want to offend anyone either.
Yeah.
While you're doing this.
Yeah. And it was surprising the things that ended up maybe getting lost in translation or offending people, and the things that I thought would that didn't. Like there's like so many surprises along the way. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
I was asking, like, also, did you like provide these people scripts, or were they just like having conversations?
Oh yeah, it was all scripted.
It was, okay. I couldn't tell. I was like, I don't know if this is just like how they are, and this is just incredible that you're capturing this like perfectly.
Well, a lot of it is scripted, but then there's all these little voiceover pieces and these like interstitial moments on film that are captured from doc materials I collected before.
Okay.
So yeah, and then the woman who's a medium who I casted days before learned all her lines in a day. And
Amazing. Yeah, and I love that end credit too. So we're like, oh.
And that is that's unscripted.
Yeah, you can tell. Like, you really believe that like, in her heart too.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Great. Okay, and then with Regina, Yes. Okay. So I did read that this was actually your first narrative short, and that you worked on a documentary before this. And also, like, going from documentary to fiction, what was that process like, and what kind of things did you learn along the way?
I had done a couple of little shorts before, but I felt very narrative. Actually, it felt very easy. It was harder doing documentary because I'm a control freak. I like to create the entire vision and be in control of it, and have real actors with dialogue as opposed to people and not knowing what they're going to do and having crappy lighting right when something important happens. And I felt after having made a documentary, which really you make backwards because you don't have a script. You just shoot, and then you kind of create the story in the editing room. Whereas a narrative, it's like, it felt like such a luxury. It's like, I know exactly what's going to be in the film. We're just shooting from here to here, and I know everything I'm going to need. And everyone's just going to do what I want them to do. And then I'm just going to put it together with some awesome music, and then I'm done.
This is
like, it just felt like,
no
oh
comparison.
my God.
Yeah, I have never done narrative, but I personally am like, oh my God, I'm very intimidated by it. I feel like documentary is so much easier, but that's true. There is a system to it. That's true.
No, I challenge you to like pick something and make something, and you'll be like, oh my God, this is so great. Everybody's like lit well and doing what I want them to do, and then it's over and I'm done.
Gosh,
and I know
I can imagine. It's true. I also a follow up for that, like being able to choose things. The locations were incredible. How did you find these places, and where were they?
Well, I live in California, and there are a lot of preset Western
that's awesome.
locations. all around Southern California.
I had no idea. Okay, so you just chose one of those. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I do see that there's questions coming in. Maybe I'll ask one more round and then we can go into these questions that are coming from the audience. So the next question I have is for Nathalie, again, around yes. So as I mentioned, like my relationship was very similar with my Mexican mother, with like the controlling and criticisms and that sort of thing. But I really loved that moment of healing in the daughter and how she transitioned into being like, I have to appreciate my mother for what she's done and that sort of thing. And I wanted to see if you could go into that more, and how did you come up with that turning point? If you could explain it further.
Yeah, definitely. Especially what you just mentioned about that turning point. It's very difficult in that moment when her mother is what seems like attacking her for just trying to assimilate to an American culture. And that's all she's ever been trying to do. And for many, that's all we've been trying to do since we were really young. And of course, it's hard to see at that moment the mom's point of view. That turning point was huge for her when she finally left the house. And someone asked that question about where that mural was from. It's in the Women's Building in the Mission District in San Francisco. Y'all should go check it out. She took the main purpose that I wanted her to check out that place in specifically was that women's building has a mural of women of the past, of so many different cultures, Asian, the African community, the Latinx community. And that moment for her was really understanding so much of what an immigrant has to deal with to come to the US. Mm-hmm. And like so much that she didn't even know because her mom may not have told her. Because a lot of the times immigrants that come to the US choose not to say certain things to their children because they're trying to protect them, or they're trying to not relive those things that they've experienced, because a lot of the times it is traumatic, a lot of the times it hurts. And the only thing at the end of the day, really what the mother was trying to do is help her go far in life, in a way that her mom couldn't, because she didn't have the tools, because she didn't speak the language. And that was a huge turning point. So when she came back, she really had to think and understand, wow, there's so much that my mom probably had went through that I have no idea what she went through. But it allowed them to connect in a way that really solidified this union and this connectiveness that is so pure. And even just for a mother and a daughter to understand each other, I really wanted to show that. I really wanted to show that there will be fights, but at the end, it's the purpose is the most important thing.
Wow. That is absolutely beautiful, Nathalie. I think that level of intention is so inspiring. And I feel like a lot of us, we just don't see that relationship play out on screen, and how to understand that maybe our parents don't have that emotional capacity or tools to know how to raise us in this way that they hope us to be, this like dream American. It's true.
You just said it. It's not allowing for there to be an emotional space.
Right.
That's another theme. Yeah.
Yes, it's huge. Thanks, Nathalie. All right. And now we can go to Andi. Another question for you is around knowing that you were the writer director. Is that correct? Of it, and then you were also the protagonist. So yes, how was that experience of being all three and directing yourself, or did you have somebody else also?
Yeah, I directed myself. It was I learned so much from making this movie. I had always said I didn't want to direct myself. You know, like I was always an actor before, and I knew I wanted to make movies, and I had told myself I'm not going to be one of those actors that directs themselves. I don't know why I had it in my head like I'm not going to do that. I'm above that, but I guess maybe I was scared of it in some ways too. And I've seen a lot of people do it, and I feel like they do it from a place of ego, and it doesn't do any justice to the story. So I was really scared of that. But after I wrote the script, I knew I had to play Brittany Lee, and I looked at it in a way of like, this is going to be a learning experience. Like everything was a learning experience. This is the first time I've made I'll say real movie. You know,
all your movies are real.
Like, raised money and hired people, and I've done like little shootouts and things. But what I discovered and what advice I would give anybody trying to do this is just surround yourself with people you trust and who really believe in your vision and your story. And I was really lucky enough to have found people who were, they really wanted to help me tell the story. From my producer Gardner, who's the first person on board, I sent him the script. I met him at a film festival a few years before, and I sent him the script, and he was like, yes, we're going to tell this story. And that kind of set the chain of events, I think, that led to us finding people who really cared about it and I could trust. So like whenever I was on screen, I knew that I had a team of people who were going to be honest with me and who were going to tell me if they saw certain things that maybe I missed. And it was definitely a juggling act to put on a director hat and then completely change into a character. Right. It was a lot of work, and it was fulfilling work, and I'm glad I did it. I think my next film, I won't do that again. I'll just direct. But I definitely credit my acting coach in New York, Anthony Abeson, with being able to do that, because I studied with him for 5 years, and he really changed the way my brain works in terms of like looking at the acting work in the same way you look at it from a directing standpoint. So he kind of equipped me to be able to do that. Wow. And it was just like, following my gut and
well, you pulled it off excellently.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was quite the performance. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right, and now to Regina. The other thing that I really loved about this piece was that it was so simple, like no dialogue in the beginning, yet there were all these layers in it still, even though it was such a like seemingly simple storyline. And I wanted to ask more about how that storyline came about as well. Where did it come from, and how did you get those different layers with the simplicity too?
Well, I stole a lot from a lot of different spaghetti westerns, and especially the scenes where there's a lot of tension and a lot of like drama without a lot of movement, like like the barkeep and the gunsling, you know what I'm talking about, like
yes, these typical motifs.
Yes. So I basically just stole all that stuff, and the first scene I wrote, I threw that in at the last minute because I saw the bar and I thought, ooh, I should have him enter and then have an old bartender rob him. And so somebody found that really great looking old man, and it was like at the last minute that we cast him and
oh my goodness. Oh, he was perfect.
I loved him.
He fit in so well with that scene. Oh, that's great. Great. Okay. Now I want to make sure. Oh, I'm seeing we're getting more. Okay. So now to Brittany with the cheap seats. One more time around. Yes, for me, I've always been interested in very like supernatural and all of this growing up. So I loved watching it. Anyways, I'm like, I would love to make a documentary like this too. But I guess just wondering what was sort of like the main message you were hoping audience to take away from it, or was there a message you were trying to get people to explore too?
Yeah. Yes, kind of. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to. The main character is sort of written based off of like a combination of a lot of my family members, like the women in my family combined into like one super protagonist, and I wanted, I guess, message wise, I wanted it to remain kind of ambiguous in terms of like if she really believed or what she took away from it. And it was more a meditation on like what can you, is there, how much of yourself do you have to put forward to be able to like take something from an experience like that? And is it worth it? I don't know. I guess it's not like a super cookie cutter message, but my experience going to mediums and psychics and trying to get some sort of like clarity or sense of spirituality from them. I think like personally, I grew up not super rooted in something culturally that was very sharp or like defined. So when you go to these places, you like, I personally really want to like have an experience where I'm like connecting to my dead grandma, or I see ghosts. Like it'd be so awesome to like
pass over to the other world, right?
Yeah, and no, but when I went, often sometimes you'd have an experience with someone, and it was almost like offensive in some ways that a stranger was telling you they were talking to your love, and sometimes it was really like there was a real connection, like it really like run the gamut. And I feel like I guess I just wanted to play with that feeling and explore the town, and there's no right or wrong. So just like this is a slice of culture and spirituality that you can take from this place. And I think it also like really represented Florida in an interesting way too.
Yeah, I don't know how many people know this town even exists. Like, I don't know. I had never heard of it. And I think oftentimes it's like, yeah, take what you want from it. If you believe that it is real or not, I feel like you left it for the audience to decide. Yeah. All right. And then we have back to Dani around the sister relationship. So I was wondering, like, how did you come up? I know that you're saying that it was already a play, but did you have to do any other background research or any like internal diving? Because I think I read that it was sort of inspired by your own relationship with your sister too. And like, how did that have to come out? Was it like through journaling, or how did you start to develop that sister relationship too?
Yeah. Well, for me, the film is kind of a like what if, because I think a lot of times when we grow apart from people we're close to, we don't necessarily take the time to like sit down and reconnect and like try to work through the things that we don't understand anymore about each other. So the film has a kind of intentional like dreamlike quality. I think there's like a little like the opening is like a little surreal, and the whole kind of aesthetic is very like blurry and kind of like memory like. So it was more an imagination exercise. I don't actually have a sister. I have a brother, so it's like it's a different dynamic. But I got to kind of, but we're very different, and we're very close, but we're very different. So I was thinking a lot about what if we were very different and not very close. What would it mean to like sit down and have to stay in that conversation? And luckily, Catherine and Mary, the two actors, have been working together a lot longer than I've been working with them. So they have a natural,
yes, it felt like they knew each other forever.
Rapport, kind of. But something that was crucial for this is that there's a kind of unknown backstory that like is not spoken, and all three of us have really different ideas of what that is. So that was really helpful because like everyone got to have like something that they didn't understand about the other way the other person was like approaching this, and that actually was ended up being really
because then it created that complexity of like where each person's coming from.
Yeah, like trying to figure out what the other person is thinking, but not necessarily having the tools to like, ask those
right, which makes it super real, like in the conversation too. Wow.
And then a lot of the dialogue is them kind of like tiptoeing around.
Right. To like try not to explain everything, like have it be a slow reveal. Yeah.
So it was like their, natural relationship.
Okay.
This kind of framework of like, what if anything was possible in this like dreamlike moment.
Yeah, I loved that intro too, that it was like this abstract, like you don't really know what's going on. If you didn't read the log line, you wouldn't really know that they were sisters. Like there's a lot of slow reveal that really added a lot to the story too. Great. Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions, so I think I'm going to go over to the chat box. So we can go ahead and start out with question number 1. How did Brittany find Laura for the main role for the cheap seats? Yes. How did that happen?
Laura was perfect for the role, and I reached out to a casting director in Austin who is amazing. Her name's Vicky Boone, and she casts a lot of the big stuff that comes through. And I work in production as well, and have done a lot of indie films in Austin, and so I know her. We asked for her advice, and she sent a few people, and I watched some of Laura's material, and I just offered her the role. Like, she didn't audition, and then she trusted us and came down to South Florida, or to Central Florida from New Orleans, where she's based, for a week. And it was really
wow. Yeah, she was fantastic. I think it was such a great contrast. She was perfect.
Yeah.
Great. All right. And now for Regina, how important is the late Ennio Morricone to Regina as an influence to the Western genre?
I absolutely live by Ennio Morricone. I have every single one of his soundtracks. I'm obsessed. I'm so sad that he passed away recently. The music of spaghetti westerns is what makes me really love them. I'm totally drawn in by the music, because that is the best way. That's the best marriage, in my opinion, of film and music is spaghetti westerns. I also feel like the movies like A Girl Walks Home at Night, I feel like the movies that have used spaghetti western, I feel like that's almost like cheating. I feel like you could take any crap movie, and if you put spaghetti western music in it, it's going to elevate it. I feel like it's so good. It's such good film music that it's almost cheating. And I plan to do that as much as possible.
For any genre. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Spaghetti western music is like,
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. Totally. Yes. Somebody tried to put it in my trailer for my documentary, and I'm like, this is not working. Like, this is not working. Like, da-da-ding, like a little banjo. That's funny. Okay. Next is the acting and directing. So we did that one. How did Dani and the DP, Jason Chu, go about crafting the visual look of Cool for 5 Seconds? It's beautifully shot. I totally agree with that. All the cinematography, actually, for these projects is just spot on. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Jason is obviously has an incredible eye. So I've never worked with a cinematographer before this project, so I was unable to tell him what to do, which was something that was really stressful to me at the beginning. And then as I started working with him, and I realized the kind of I realized how talented and insightful he was, it turned into a huge asset, because we had to really collaborate, and I had to really trust him. So, we had a lot of tonal conversations about what I wanted the piece to feel like. But then I had to rely on Jason really entirely in respect to what the shot was actually going to look like, because he was the expert. So it ended up kind of like working in our favor, because he got to express himself really, I feel, really fully through this piece.
Yes, thank you, Dani. That's good.
And I'm super visual, so I had like lots of references that some
that helps.
some like paintings, some like photos of other people's Christmas parties, like kind of all sorts of stuff.
I love that.
We like took it and ran with it and created this beautiful aesthetic.
Yes, it truly is beautiful. I totally agree. Okay. Now we can go to Andi. How much of your early life and upbringing came into play in Push Here? I know we sort of went over that, like that growing up there. Is there anything else that you'd want to add, maybe around like the internal conflict that the protagonist was having, or however how deep you'd like to go into that question?
It's a very personal film. The whole story is very personal, just because, I mean, I've had family, like I said, that's dealt with addiction that affected my life very personally. I have friends who I've seen who have lost their lives due to addiction. So that aspect of it is very personal, and it's based on a lot of people I know. But in general, just like the film itself, like looking at it, it's where I'm from. Like I grew up with all of those places. I knew the people in that church. I went there to ask them if I could film there, and it was a very sweet moment. That the scene in the river where she jumps in the river, and that was the last thing I added. I just felt like the script was missing something, and that place. I love that spot, and it just popped into my head, and I just knew I needed to put it in there, because I know people who've been baptized there. They have have memories of that. And even like after people who've watched the film, they're like, "Oh, I know that spot. My grandfather was baptized there."
Oh my gosh!
So it's when I watch the film, it gives me a very like gut reaction, because it's not just the story that I relate to and is personal. It's everything visually, and just seeing Appalachia on screen means so much to me. I wanted it to look beautiful the way I see it. I wanted people to see the beauty of it.
Wow. Yeah. And my God, I was like in tears with that scene, because you really felt that transition from her, like, oh, wow, like finally I feel happiness, and that realization of that maybe that's like one of her first times just feeling carefree, that just, destroyed. It was really powerful.
Thank you.
All right. Now we can go to Brittany around your process in writing the narrative. Okay, so you're like, this is something that we really want to get into. The going through and cutting your documentary footage, did you write it into the script? How did it inspire or impact that narrative?
Yeah, it inspired it a lot. And I had gone there 2 or 3 times with another documentary filmmaker and shot some interviews. And I knew that I wanted to have 2 women who have different experiences along the way in their day. And I went through a lot of different drafts trying to decide like how exactly Laura's character would have sort of her like maybe revelation, maybe not. There's just a lot. There are a lot of different characters there, and a lot of the characters are based off real people. Like they go into a hotel that's like a real hotel that you can go and stay in, and the book that they're sort of like given to like have some choices about who they want to see. That's real too. We just like remake it.
Amazing.
And then where she ultimately finds a psychic, that store is also real, but the woman behind the counter was an actress too, but she was based off of the
wow. Yeah, wouldn't have known. So the guide that was in the hotel was also an actress.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep. That's amazing. I really thought that these people were like the actual people, but that they were somehow like just doing this perfectly.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That's really cool.
I'm glad that comes across.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, wow, they're just really going in for this. They could be natural born presenters on camera.
Well, we casted in the land, which is the town that Casadega's in, and we filmed all the auditions too. We filmed so much extra documentary material actually, because the whole process of making a film there that was fictional ended up maybe being in some ways more interesting than my like actual fictional film, which is why documentary is so fun. A lot of the people who auditioned had spent time in Casadega or knew about it, and were really interested in like portraying those roles.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely like have that on my list now. I must go next time I'm in Florida. I have to find this place. Awesome. All right, and now to Regina. Was the role of gunslinger in Regina's film created specifically for her husband Frankie? He'd have Eastwood shaking in his boots. There you go.
Yes, the answer is yes. And he definitely embraced that role. And it came to him, he's not really an actor, so it was perfect that he didn't have to talk, but he really embodies that character. And he's at the end of his life, and he wanted to ride off into the sunset like a cowboy. So it was perfect.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Yeah. It's like you didn't even need any words. It was like unnecessary. Like his face said it all. It was great. And now we have for Nathalie, someone comments, I love the natural way that Spanish and English are woven into the dialogue. How conscious was this in your writing process?
Yeah, so when I wrote Mi Alma, it was in university, and I had to turn in a full English version of the script. But originally, I wanted to put Spanish and English, obviously because of the duality of the languages and connecting them together. Consciously, I tried my best with the words that I knew in Spanish and English. When it was the shoot day, we had two shoot days only, and a half of a day as well. My beautiful actresses Jovita and Isabel were able to kind of help me with a little bit of the Spanish. Like, oh, this word may not be the best word, but let's try this one. And it was, I was really, when it was the writing process, I really was thinking in my head, how are these two women gonna act with this dual language? Like, and they were so helpful on the day. They actually met for the first time on that day, so they didn't actually audition. And I was so impressed of like how much of a chemistry they were able to have. And with Jovita, I actually didn't even see her in person when I cast her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I just, when I we did like this, right? The laptop, it was, I just knew that this was the mom for sure. And they really made it the movie that it is.
Wow. Yeah, and I feel like it was very common, like the experience of her speaking in Spanish, the mother, and then responding in English. Like that's, I feel like all my friends, anyone who, not even just like Latina people, but all different like children of immigrants, like we lose our language because this is the common thing that you respond in English, unfortunately. Because yes, you're American, you just want to focus on English. Sad, I regret it. But yes, that's great that you had that like conscious decision. Definitely. All right, so now I see we have like 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to end with this question for everyone that was entered. So we have, hello, do you have an idea for your next project? And does this current film influence the type of project and topic you want to get into next? So maybe we can start with Dani.
Sure. So as I mentioned, this is like my first short film. So a driving question that I had through this whole process was like, can I do this? And then, so it was, I picked a kind of like intentionally simple project in terms of like one location, like 2 actors, just to like really dig into this. And now that I've seen this process through, I am with my next project trying to kind of figure out like a little more what my kind of like style is and what like stories I really want to tell. So I'm writing this project, which I've never done before. And it's a much more like world building project. Whereas this piece kind of like drops you in a moment. This next piece I'm doing is very much like a whole world. And that is all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right. No spoilers. That's all we got. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm sure it'll be just as beautiful. Great. All right. Now to Brittany.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I do. I am working on a project about Florida, like a longer form project. And Casadega has definitely, in some ways, inspired that quite a bit. Yeah, I'm from Florida, but I moved away for school maybe 10 years ago, and I went to Austin, and I haven't lived there since, but I go back all the time, and it's like very ripe with inspiration. And
yeah, I don't feel like there's enough stories coming out of Florida at all, so that's great that you're doing that focus there too. And it's a documentary or narrative?
No, I've written a narrative.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I think I can explore some of those topics.
Awesome. Well, good luck. That's great. A big endeavor. All right, and now to Andi.
Yeah, I have plans. We'll see what actually happens next. But I'm writing a feature script that I've been working on a while, and collaborating with somebody on a TV script and a TV pilot, and then I have a short script as well. And they're all, Appalachia is my muse, so they're all centered around Appalachia and Appalachian stories. I really want to branch away from addiction and poverty, which is a lot of what you see about Appalachia, and I want to start telling stories about Appalachia that aren't about that. So that's what I'm hoping.
Oh my gosh. Yep, that is incredible. I also wish you the best of luck doing so. Yeah, these are just like places that are just not we don't see enough in mainstream media. So that's wonderful to hear that you have these focuses on these places. Okay, now to Regina.
I do have a script that I found that I do want to do next. It's a post-apocalyptic. It's a very strong female protagonist in a post-apocalyptic world, and she has a hawk that she has mental telepathic conversations with.
Amazing.
And she battles rogue. It's kind of like Road Warrior meets The Bad Batch meets Revenge.
Wow.
I'm a genre movies. I'm a genre lover. So.
I see. Love. And you said this is a short or a feature?
A feature.
Feature. Oh, incredible. All right. Can't wait to see that one too. That sounds quite the adventure. And lastly, we have Nathalie.
Yeah, so I'd love to really hone in and explore more about Latinx culture. That's my main priority at the moment, and hopefully really getting into a script where I can just find new avenues. And I just love the multi-genre aspect of film, so I want to really delve into that as well.
Beautiful. Also very needed. That's wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much to everyone. I am just so inspired by all like your bravery to going into this world of film and making films and telling your stories that you're passionate about. I wish you the best of luck for continuing on and look forward to watching your work in the future too. Thanks.
So
before
you guys sign off, I just wanted to tell everyone who hasn't seen your film to go see your film. And I'm going to put the link where they can buy tickets in the comments. So, yes. And also, this will be recorded. So, you guys are watching it now, so it probably doesn't matter, but it'll be featured in our social media platforms tomorrow, the whole video. So, you can watch it again if you want. And, yes, I guess that's it. And thanks for joining us tonight. It really means a lot. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette.
Thank you. Bye-bye.